We'll try that again. Greetings and welcome to the school committee meeting of December 19th, 2017. As always, I'd like to remind you this meeting is being recorded for use at a later date, and it's also being broadcast live, so keep that in mind. I'd ask you to entertain joining me in a moment of silence. Thank you. Also would pledge allegiance to the flag, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. The business of this evening is going to be discussing the old business, which is the McQuon closing update. We have Ernie here this evening to discuss this. We have some people from both towns, from Hanson, Ruth, and the rest of the committee, and we're going to discuss some of the things that we talked about of the McQuon school closing, such as possibly putting the date off or asking the town of Hanson to consider a town meeting in February to secure the funding for the district. So I'm going to turn it over to Ruth, and we can get into just a little bit of it.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Just to give people a little bit of a timeline, if you recall, last February of 2017, we were looking at ways to handle the FY18 budget, which is the one we're working on today, and Chair Hayes brought up a number of things for us to look into. And one of them was the possible closing of the McQuon School. The reason that this was brought up was probably twofold. Number one, we've been experiencing declining enrollment in both Whitman and Hanson. Typically, classes in Hanson used to be about 150 students per grade level. Now we're looking at about 108, 110, so clearly spaces were becoming available. And then the second concern was the condition of the McQuon School. Several of us had visited with the Capital Committee during budget time in Hanson and had brought forth to them about $5 million worth of repairs that needed to be done at the McQuon School. And that was just an estimate. It wasn't the result of an engineering study, and truth be told, it was probably a number somewhat greater than that, with the biggest concern being the heating systems and the electrical system. So as a result of that conversation in February, a number of us investigated whether that was really feasible to be able to close the McQuon School and move folks around. And it looked completely unfeasible for this current school year because the declining enrollment wasn't really impacting class size to a level we could do that at Hanson Middle School, but it looked very feasible for the 18-19 school year. From that point in time, that required a vote from the school committee, conversations with the selectmen in Hanson, also concerns about what the lease agreement really said. So on April 12th, 2017, school committee voted to move forward with the closing of the McQuon School, and on May 22nd, 2017, a letter was sent by the school committee and central office to the town of Hanson selectmen indicating that we would like to return the building on or before September 1st, 2018. From that point in time, Pat Dillon, who was with us at that time as assistant superintendent, began working on the project, developing spreadsheets, and then, as you know, he left unexpectedly in August due to family concerns, and the rest of us began to take the project over at that time. In order to put anything on the town meeting warrant for October, it would have been very difficult to do that because those items were needed for by mid to late August. So over this fall, we've been working on timelines and also building the actual costs of the project. And I felt as superintendent it was extremely important for taxpayers, both towns, to know what this was going to cost, because before you can do anything, it's really important to have money in the bank to be able to do that. So at the school committee meeting last week, we came forward with estimates of what the costs would be. And then at the subcommittee meeting beforehand, we looked at timelines and some concerns, and they've been brought up before. I know, Mike, you've had some concerns about the project, and Robbie O'Brien also brought up concerns as to whether this could really happen with the timeline that we had. And I think my biggest concern was if we can't do it if we don't have the money, because we're not going to say to the facilities department, you need to do this work, and then the invoices come in and there's no money in the bank to do that. And as a result of that, there was not adequate time to discuss this last Wednesday evening, so we felt it was very important to reconvene the school committee. A number of conversations have taken place between that time and then to really look at cost, to look at space. I know that some of you visited Braintree Preschool to get an idea of what that would look like, and then various conversations, as Chair Hayes mentioned, as to whether we might look at a changing timeline, a staggered timeline, or whether we would have a town meeting earlier to be able to allocate the funding so folks could move forward. And this is ultimately a conversation for the school committee, but we felt before we spend any money or do anything, we really need to see where we are.
Christine, would you go over the impact of the numbers?
Sure.
Of what, and we can quickly, for those that weren't here the other evening.
Sure.
And we can go down exactly what is gonna, if you give them the numbers, I'll read them what,
Okay, perfect.
what we are thinking of doing.
So, the cost for moving the pre-K here to the high school, the impact is $428,267.50, of which is split 59.82 to Whitman, 40.18% to Hanson, because it's both towns, it's both towns that use the pre-K. Then moving grade K through 2 to Indian Head, the financial impact is $332,568.25. Then moving the 5th grade to Hanson Middle School, $8,875. And if we were to move the special education programs that are currently at McQuon and Indian Head, if we were to move them to Duval, that financial impact would be $23,750.
Now, the McQuon pre-K move to the high school is gonna include retrofitting the computer labs into classrooms, which would be 3 of them. Renovating the classrooms for PK, doors, walls, painting, flooring, lighting, 5 classrooms. Install exterior door with card access. Install interior corridor doors, pre-K playground, turf kid play, playground fence, 5 bathrooms. That includes plumbing, electrical, sprinklers, ceiling tiles, ventilation, tiles for the floors, fire alarms, and concrete. Remove lockers and install storage cubbies for little ones. Moving company and crate rentals, because you've got to move everything. Updating the road and the traffic flow around the building on that side of the building, which if you come in through the parking lot, you'll notice there is always pretty much of a gate. It's over by where the current rooms are now for tech services, and also where the specialty room is for doing all the copies, the copy center. And an additional day staff move to the high school. That particular move, like retrofitting the computer labs, Chad, if you can talk about that a little bit, so people will get an idea, it's not just moving, and what is out of date. The school is 13 years old now.
Yeah, what it entails for that item is the 3 computer labs in the back of the building, to remove all the network cabling, the electrical wiring, so that the tables could be removed from the rooms. The carpets would be removed, and I believe VCT tile was going to get put in place of the rugs.
Where are you going?
The rooms, from those rooms right there, would be moving those 3 computer labs up into the computer labs on the 2nd and 3rd floor. So we'd have to move the computers that are currently in those locations into the designated locations on the 2nd and 3rd floor that are computer labs right now, and swapping out some of the computers and aligning them so that the right people and right computers with software in there are in the right rooms.
So the 3 rooms that we see to the right as you walk down this corridor are the rooms you're talking about, correct?
No, the computer labs are going to be the ones all the way down the end and take a left. The first 3, once you take that left.
Okay, what are you going to be doing here on the right?
The These rooms right here on the right-hand side would be the new pre-K rooms.
Okay,
The,
so you're moving, that's what I'm saying, you're moving out,
yeah, those people that are in those 4 rooms, 108, 110, 112, and 108, 110, and 114 would move into those computer labs now because they'd be classrooms.
that's what
So
I'm
those
saying.
people
Just
do-
so everybody
Yep.
that can get a picture of where you're going, you're leaving right here on the right-hand side and moving to computer lab.
Correct, yeah.
Okay. And Ernie, can you tell us what the configuration would be as far as where the outside doors would be and how you would confine it, we'll say, or block it off to the rest of the building?
The outside door that we'd be cutting in is in room 114,
One door?
one door. And it's similar, if you've been in our courtyard cafe or in the art room here, it's a similar setup. It's a single door with the side light. And the way AI3 designed this building is they have double windows. Where they don't have double windows, they have a doorway. So we've actually taken the specifications from AI3 and duplicated that doorway. So 114, the last door or last room on the right, the double window that's in there would be cut out, and that door, duplicating the door that's in the art room and the courtyard cafe, would be installed along that area.
Now, Ernie, when that entranceway is made or configured, is it going to be, those students will enter into a classroom or into a hallway? I mean, we talk about safety and security in these
Yeah.
buildings.
Yeah.
And we've updated it in Hanson Middle and Whitman Middle, and, because there's been a lot of concern, a lot of discussion about that.
So I think the way the program looks right now, or I know the way the program looks right now, when you pull up, mom and dad, if I had a preschool, the child would come inside, that door that we talked about adding, and there would be a foyer, there'd be an entranceway there. So they'd come through that door, there'd be an area, and then there'd be a hallway out to the main corridor. There will also be interconnecting doors with the other classrooms. So there's a couple of reasons we did that, Bob. If we just had a single door opening from the outside into a classroom, not only would the air conditioning and heat be evacuated, but everything would be blown all over the place. So the confinement coming in from the outside, we'd have controlled cot access on the outside, and then you have, however Tricia does it at McQuan School would be similar to here, that the students would come into the building and they'd be in the inside of a foyer. Right now, I go over to McQuan School. I notice Tricia's down by where the buses come in. She's standing out there. So it'd kind of be like that, but the cars would be pulling up and the buses would be pulling up on the right-hand side. So the design that we came up with, the best way we thought about it is because we also looked at about leaving the kids, not having any doors in between the classrooms and the kids come out into the corridor. Well, what would happen is when the kids, and we had a fire drill yesterday, when the kids come from, the adult kids come down door 3 or come down stairway 3, we're trying to keep them away from the high school students coming down and going out that door. That's why we decided to put that door over on the right-hand side.
Now, Ernie, let's just hypothetically say if a student, one of the young students got sick and mom was coming or dad was coming to pick that student up, how's that going to work compared to moving into a main office like here at the high school?
Well, I would leave that to Jeff Simonak and Tricia to work it out, but I can tell you what I see at McQuan School. When there is a student in the preschool that's sick, they go up to the main office. I see that happening. Same thing with any other student. They go into the main office. I don't know how that will happen here, Bob, but if there's a student that gets sick in the preschool classrooms, I know they'll work something out.
I'm asking because there's concerns. I'm getting
Yeah.
these questions.
Yeah. I see how they do it now, in all the schools. The secretaries in that office for mom and dad to show up and pick them up, whether they're in the nurse's office or not. So I think it would be something as practical as that.
As far as walling off the rest of the building for the security purposes of keeping the kids in different areas?
Yeah. So we also, in that number of $400,000+, there's 2 corridor doors, glass doors. They'll be down by technology, and then they'll have card access on them. And then gain access through there, you walk down to where Chad said the computer labs are, there'll be another set of glass doors. So it'll be divisioned off, 2 sets of glass doors in that area.
Like one on each side of that staircase?
Correct. So it'll be one right out here, Bob,
Yeah.
as you walk down just before technology, and then you go down just before that stairwell, there'll be another one situated right there.
And then on the other side of the stairwell, heading towards like culinary arts room?
Correct.
There'll be another set of doors, so it's double doors, but stairway access?
Correct.
Okay. I'm just trying to give everybody a
Yeah.
better picture of what's going on. I'm not, okay. Any
Right.
questions from anybody? Come right up so we can all hear you.
I was coming for moral support and wasn't going to speak, but I really question why you need a separate entrance at all.
Ruth?
Sure, I
Bernie?
mean,
Jeff?
we've looked at a variety of different ways to do that, Sue. We've, as recently as yesterday, we were talking about kids could be dropped off right here and come down that way, but there are safety concerns with doing that. So ideally, to have a separate entrance would be more of a secure way of looking at it.
Well, as now their parents bring them in, don't they? So, I mean, they'd be coming in and out with their parent.
I mean,
I
that is
don't
another-
really see
it's
what the
another
safety.
option. I know, Kyle, you had some safety concerns with that. Kyle Riley, as Assistant Superintendent of Student Services, is ultimately responsible, working with Tricia on the early childhood program. So maybe you can address that.
My initial concerns were just that if they had a secure door, it's something that I had done in another district, very similar situation with the preschool going to kindergarten, that we know who's going in and out of that door. It is designated for that population of 3 and 4-year-olds with their parents. And it seems to be the more secure thing. As we began to talk about the front of the building, it's not that it couldn't be done. It's that, how does the access road here coming in look? And it happens, we were talking about it, we had a fire alarm at the scheduled drill at the high school, and we watched some trucks come in. What does that look like for the population as kids may be getting dropped off during a drill or something else? So it was just really a conversation we're trying to have, like what's best, what's the safest thing and cost-effective at the same time. So, I mean, that's around our discussion. There's no one way to do it, but more so that
And I think just to add one other piece, the fire lane is on the inside of the curb out here, so we have been working very diligently for many years to keep people from parking on that side, because if there should be some sort of an emergency event, even if it's being done for drop-off, it could be done, certainly with the summer program, they drop kids off, but ideally, you don't want cars in that fire lane. There are probably some in there right now, if I walked out and looked, but that was the real consideration, was to keep that lane. If you were to drop off kids in the front on the other side, then they have to come across the road, and that's where Kyle had real concerns when we looked at it yesterday.
But again, they are with their parents.
They are, yeah.
So I just see it as an unnecessary cost and kind of a convoluted way of getting them in.
Yeah, well, it's certainly been a topic of our conversation, too. Thank you.
Anyone else? Mike?
Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to add our 2 cents in terms of my impression of where the town of Hanson is on this right now. And I need to also apologize for myself and the chairman. We do have a meeting. It starts at 7 o'clock, so we're going to need to depart fairly soon. But I wanted to come before the committee to let the committee know that the town of Hanson, and I can't speak for the Board of Selectmen, and obviously we don't have it on our agenda this evening, so I'm not sure if we can address it. However, my impression is that it makes more sense from our vantage point to try to put together some sort of mechanism by which we can get you the funding that at the end of the day you find you require to make the transition happen as soon as possible. I think going forward, if we lose a semester, we lose a school year, in terms of the transition and the school coming over into to our possession. We're looking at enhanced liabilities. Obviously, we've put some money into the school to get us through this particular school year that we would have preferred not to, but knew that it was required. And I think that any further delays will be more money better spent somewhere else. If we can figure out in cooperation what it would still take, or what it will take to still get to effectuate the transfer of the school, the timeline that we've been looking towards all along, it makes more sense. And whether that requires, and I think it may very well require, I think as the chairman mentioned, a special town meeting on the behalf of the town of Hanson. I'm not really sure what sort of monies Whitman committed at their town meeting a week or 2 weeks or however long ago it was. And obviously I can't speak for the town of Whitman. But I think we're looking to move forward as quickly as possible. We continue to look forward, to look towards moving forward as quickly as possible. And as you have your discussions as to what makes sense with the things that you've found out, and you don't know things until you know things. You've gone through the process and you're finding out you've got other issues that you need to deal with, and we can certainly appreciate that. We are really, at least in my opinion, we're looking for a dollar figure, and we're looking for a timeline that we can try to work with you with, so that we can get this moving as quickly as possible. So with that, I think the chairman and I are, unfortunately, like I said, we need to get to our own meeting. I think it probably makes sense to try to have a joint meeting, or have Bob and Ruth and some of the other representatives, Christine, of your committee, of the department, come to hopefully our next school committee, our next Board of Selectmen meeting, and continue the discussion with some of the information that maybe you decide upon this evening as you go forward. But again, the town of Hanson, at least on my opinion, is we want to move forward as quickly as possible. Let us know what we can do to effectuate that, and let's see if we can make it happen.
Mike, is there a chance, I know that, you know, I believe that my memory serves me that in order to have a special town meeting, you need a 45-day notice. And that would bring us into sometime in the first week, or the second week of February.
Yeah.
Because obviously, some of the plans were to work on this particular job during February vacation, April vacation, the whole summer. So the sooner the better if this moves in breakneck speed, if it's got to get done that way. I know Ernie had planned on doing some of that, because he's planning on doing a lot of it in-house to save money.
And we
You know,
appreciate that.
and to save the town money. So is there any way you could put a placeholder or put it in gear to at least get it started for the 45-day time clock?
I think so, Mr. Chairman. I would, I've really never been in a situation where I had to turn around on a meeting like this that quickly. So I don't want to say, oh, by all means,
I
I'll take
understand.
care of it tomorrow. I have to look into it a little bit. All this, you know, came to our attention within the last couple of days or so. And it's something we certainly want to, like I said, we want to move on quickly and move in, you know, concert with the school department. I will obviously mention it in my report this evening to the Board of Selectmen. We wouldn't be, or the board would not be in a position where they could take any official action. If necessary, when we think through it over the next couple of days, we certainly can look at calling an additional Board of Selectmen meeting out of cycle, if that helps to effectuate what needs to be done in a timely manner. But it's going to take me a few days to figure out, and probably a quick conversation with legal counsel and figuring out how we get this done real quick. I have had conversations as recently as a couple hours or so ago with the town accountant in terms of how we would fund, how we would try to appropriate these monies. I think we have a good handle on the ballpark figure that I've heard here this evening. We'd probably borrow and just borrow it out for a couple of years. Again, I don't want to speak too far ahead of myself in terms of what we definitely would do and what we would definitely recommend to town meeting. But suffice to say, we're already trying to think about how we would handle this, and again, get it done as quickly as possible and stay with the timeline that we have originally, that both sides have originally intended. So I look forward to speaking with, everyone here. Hopefully, like I said, if necessary, we can put a meeting together sometime next week. If that's too quick, we have our regular selectmen's meeting the following week, and we will be in constant contact. Christine and I speak all the time anyway, so we will try to do this as quickly as possible and as reasonably as possible, so.
If we can stay in touch with each other, Mike, and I know you guys, you've been tremendous about doing that, I'll report back to the committee, we'll come to the select meeting, and Jim, same thing, you guys have been awesome about getting that done. And if we're going to continue with this, we'll see if we can't get this done quickly. We
Exactly.
appreciate it, we really do.
And we're obviously, I don't want to say we're real excited about spending more money or having to appropriate more money, but we also understand, at least on my behalf, we understand that by putting a certain amount of money, additional monies forward, we're saving money in the future, and actually not even in the future, in the very short term. Again, that building, we all recognize that building needs an awful lot of work, and if we were to need to keep that building open for an additional school year, we'd have to throw an awful lot of money into a building that we could be looking at, and I hate to say the extreme, but we could be looking at taking down in a couple of years. So, again, we weigh the pros and the cons, we do the cost-benefit analysis and all those sayings, and we will figure out the right way to go forward in concert with this commission, this committee, and we'll stay in constant touch.
Thank you.
And with that, like I said, I need to say, unless,
Anyone question?
Well,
Fred?
I did have a question. We're required 180 days for a school year.
That's
Is that a requirement on pre-K?
No.
So the pre-K portion, theoretically, we could do a delayed start or something if we had to, God forbid, come fall, and concentrate on K through whatever over at Indian. In other words, there could be some latitude where we could divert resources or manpower. I think in the timeline, it might be something just to consider.
Robbie?
And I'll defer to Ernie, but and I'm just gonna throw it out there. This building, as far as whatever needs to happen for retrofits and whatnot, is easy, because you've got the AI3 blueprints. Indian Head School, and I've talked to Bob and Mike and others about it, Indian Head School is,
That's
they don't know
legit.
what they're gonna hit, because
Yep.
it was built when it was built. And that's why I've always had the concern about the timeline being an aggressive timeline, because if
You hit something.
hit something,
Right, but in looking at this, most of this work right now is for this building. Granted, it's easy work, but if we diverted the resources of our staff to worrying about that first, and I'm not talking, months worth of a delayed opening, maybe a week or two might be enough or something. I'm just saying it might be something to consider.
Well, I think as we move forward, Fred, and we find out what we're doing and how we're doing it, probably in the April timeline, Ernie, would you say that could be maybe discovered? We will have a better line on how that project's gonna go. And if we had to change it for a week or two, I think that could possibly be done without a tremendous amount of problem.
well, again, the town of Hanson, and speaking for the town of Hanson, we're ready to work with the school committee and with the department, whatever way makes sense and whatever way allows us, again, to move forward as quickly as possible on this. And the nuances, which I won't delve into because I'm not an expert in it, in terms of the stats of certain school years and certain programs, if there's something that this committee, that the department can do on their end to help move forward in terms of timelines and in terms of finances, please let us know. We certainly will be responsive to whatever degree we can.
Okay.
Just to add to Mike's comments, just to remind people that in the last 3 years, taxpayers in Hanson have spent $554,781.13 to keep McQuon School open. And that's what you're
Yep.
referring to. The biggest concern of all, as we said earlier, is this heating system, which is the original one, and the parts have to all be specially made now when that happens, and the electrical system isn't very good.
Yeah, and I know that, Ernie and I and Christine have spoken and done and committed some monies to repair the system that's there right now. Really, to use the vernacular, spit and bubble gum, just to get us through the year. And I'm not sure how long that would hold up, especially if we find that we need to go into an additional school year there. So, again, it's weighing, some decent appreciable money, and I'm not scoffing at the amount that's going to be required, but an appreciable amount of money up front versus an awful lot of money, on the backside to a facility that we are not certain that we can ever use in the future. So, with that, thank you, and I will be in touch, and I appreciate all the work everyone here is doing.
Would anybody here not be able to attend a meeting next week with the Hanson Board of Selectmen? We should find that out now, just to,
Everybody available next week if we have to?
like a Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, because, Monday's Christmas, Tuesday's the day.
I'm away next week. Not until the end of the week will I be around.
Wednesday.
What, Ally?
I'm away,
January
till
2nd.
Thursday.
That would bring,
Ally might not be able to, but I'm sure some of the other members that are not here.
That's what I mean, just to find out.
It might work.
And again, I need to speak to my board in terms of their availability, and we don't obviously necessarily need to have it on a Tuesday night. As a matter of fact, it may not make sense for next Tuesday since it's a day after Christmas. We can meet, as I'm sure this board can meet, at any time, at any place, so,
After you discuss also with town council and what's going on, you might come up with a different timeline, Mike.
yeah.
So it's all hypothetical at the present time.
Yes, this is
You've got to do some
clock.
more research. If you stay in touch with me, I'll stay in touch with the committee.
We'll know what's,
Okay, thank you.
We will do what we need to do as appropriate and as quickly as possible.
thank you.
thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
That's what I wanted to find out now.
Hi. I just had a couple questions, and unfortunately, I probably am not going to be able to stick around for the answers. They're more like, when we meet, could we think about these things? Could you guys, I'm sure you've got the information, and if you could just make it available to us. So total cost to Hanson, because of course that's what I care about, but I do care about the total cost.
I have that right now.
Pardon?
I have that right now.
All right, great. And what's Plan B? If we are able to do a special town meeting and it doesn't pass, I know we don't like to dwell in the Plan B world, but just wondering, like, what is Plan B if Whitman doesn't pass it, or Hanson doesn't pass it, or both of us don't pass it? And have we had conversations with Whitman about funding as well? And are they
Yes.
thinking about a special town meeting too?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So obviously, we can't vote on any of that tonight because, as he said, it's not on our agenda, but we're definitely, it is in the forefront of our minds, but between now and when we actually can do something about it, that there might be a little bit of a lag time. And also, is there a way we can get a firm timeline on, and I know this is all contingent, but if you play it out, if we are able to go with a special town meeting in February, what does that look like for the timeline? Does the timeline stay the same but just condensed, and now Ernie and his guys have got to do more in that condensed timeline, or does that kick it out a little bit and looks like it's getting done later? And then last but not least, cost versus benefit. So if I'm a taxpayer and you're coming to me and you're saying, I want, and I'm making this amount up, 500-something thousand in Hanson, okay?
555,000.
Okay, great. So I wasn't too far off, 10% off. So if you come to me and you say, I want 550,000 to do this versus if we stay in the McQuon building, here's the things we're going to be looking at, and, here's what it's, and I know we can't, none of us have got a crystal ball, so we don't know what's going to happen with the heating system or electrical. Those are sort of, those are wild cards. But some of the other things that we, might cost us money for staying there. For instance, obviously, we're going to have to keep janitorial services and all that type of stuff. So I know that's a lot.
No, but we have those numbers.
Okay.
I mean, we've
I knew
really
you
done
guys
that.
did,
We've
and
already
maybe
done
you've even
that
made
work.
them available to Mike, and he just hasn't had a chance to.
Yeah, well, what precipitated all of this, Laura, was really last February, when we met with Capital in Hanson and said it's at least $5 million just to make McQuon School a viable learning environment for staff and students.
Right.
And we got absolutely no encouragement that that kind of money was going to be available to do that. And we've been trying to get money for just an engineering study to get a better sense of what it would take. The biggest concern at McQuon School is there is no sprinkler system. To try to put one in would require moving the ceiling, which is why when this was part of a building project, they said it's too costly.
And it is scary, like, I went through with the McQuon Reuse Committee, and the people that were on the committee were a bit stunned that there weren't sprinklers. You know, I mean,
To do that in
you
the
take that for
1960s.
granted, but it's not required, you know, because of the fact that it's grandfathered.
It's grandfathered in, but if you
But just because
start-
it's not required doesn't mean you'd feel safe with your child being there with no fire sprinklers, so.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest concern, is the repairs. We don't really know, because you need an engineering study. When we're doing the original study, the architects we were using said, look, this is so costly, we're just going to recommend you don't renovate this building. So it's expensive, we know that.
Yep,
And we also know that ongoing costs, a year ago, August of 16, the boys' bathroom on the second floor leaked into the boys' bathroom on the first floor, which was, what, $20,000 expense, or $23,000 expense, completely unanticipated, but had to be done immediately because it was stinky,
Right.
number one, and you couldn't start school. So this is the problem. Those things just keep happening.
Right, I know it's being held together with chewing gum and baling wire.
But,
to
you know,
some
I think
extent right
you
now.
go there and it looks okay.
Yep.
And that's, you know, that's commendable to Ernie and his staff and to the staff at McQuon School, that it doesn't look terrible, and I think that's good. It shows that in spite of that, every effort's been made to create a good learning environment.
And I think one of the other questions that I've heard from some constituents is, well, why do we have to do this whole thing at the high school? It's our best school, we're mucking up our best school and all of that. And I know that you're doing things like a school within a school, so that if it ever needed to be deconstructed, it could be done so with very little.
It wouldn't take too much to
Yeah.
reverse it, but I think the other reason is that because this is a newer building, you're not going to hit asbestos, you're not going to run into PCBs. None of those things are here because this is a post-asbestos building. One of the issues we looked at, possibly the Duval School. Duval School, part of it's new, part of it isn't, and when we looked at that, you don't know exactly what you're going to hit. This is the concern that came up about Indian Head. We already know when Indian Head was renovated in the late 1990s, there were a whole lot of surprises there that people hadn't anticipated. So the
Okay, so that
newer-
was one of the other questions we got is, well, can we move it to one of the Whitman schools? Is there excess capacity somewhere else? And I know that you guys have looked at this. I guess I'm just saying, maybe
Sure.
we need to get the word out a little bit more about that process.
Right, and the bottom line is, in order to make this move, there is a substantially separate special education program housed at McQuon and at Indian Head. So space is needed for that, because when you bring K-2 into the Indian Head building, that space is no longer available. So that program needs to go somewhere, and it's been at Duval School before, and it will probably go to Duval School again, but that still needs 5 classroom spaces for the preschool. So it's all trying to make it work and trying to be as cost-effective as possible.
Well, I really appreciate everybody's efforts. I'm sorry to, like, ask a million questions and then
No,
run, but.
It's a big deal.
It is a big deal, and, you know, and it is a lot of money. I know it could be more, you know, if it was some other scenario, and it's certainly not what we were looking at for the new schools. But, you know, I think we just want to make sure that if we do go to special town meeting, that we've got a good case, and that
Right.
we've really kicked the tires, as I know you guys have, but that we've got a line of sight for people to see that you've kicked the tires, and that they can say, okay, you know, if I were doing this, these are all the things I would have done. They've done all those things too, which I know you have, and I appreciate that. I just want to make sure that the word is getting out there.
Thank you.
So, thanks.
Laura, just to bring it on the McQuon, there is sort of a number you can go by. In the last 3 years, we've spent $554,781 to keep that open so we can keep it going.
Yep.
That equates to $185,000 a year, give or
Is
take a
that
little.
just in maintenance costs? That doesn't include electricity and heat?
No, that's just
Yep.
stuff.
Repairs to keep it going.
Yep,
The ca-
okay, so if you tag on
Capital repairs over
The
5,000.
capital items that we've come
Yep.
to you over the last 3 years for, that's what that.
but if you tack on utilities and all
Oh,
that,
that's a whole different.
That's
Yep.
a different cost.
okay.
And that cost is going to go away, obviously, if we close that building. So the cost savings that the district is going to see and the town's going to see, because ultimately, the town is the district.
It's all the same money.
It's all the same money. It's only coming out of Whitman-Hanson. It's not
One
like,
pocket or the other.
it comes out of one pot.
Yeah.
It's just how you break it down. So ultimately, if the district saves money, the town saves money.
All right, thank you, guys.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you. Any more questions about McQuon pre-K move to the high school before I go to McQuon K-2 to Indian Head?
I've spoken to a few of you already. You kind of know my spiel, so I wanted to just kind of say it to everyone. My name is Danielle Sheehan. I am from Hanson. I just have concerns over this whole wing here, and that we, based on numbers, Ruth, you've given me, we're maxing out schools. So I know you keep saying declining enrollment, declining enrollment. What happens when the swing goes the other way? Because your numbers here, actually, you've told me next year, 28 out of 27 classrooms, so I know there's a
I
mathematical
did it
error
backwards. It should
somewhere,
be
fine.
27 out of 20, or
But
27 out of 28, yeah.
You have Indian Head, 24 out of 25 classrooms will be used.
That's
Duval, 24 out of 24.
Yeah.
Conley, 27 out of 27, and Hanson Middle, 25 out of 25. So long-term, what happens when this swing changes and where our enrollment is back up? We have nothing. We have.
Chad? Chad's my enrollment expert, yeah.
Based on the enrollment projections, for next year, the district is looking
I'm
to.
talking 510.
Okay.
Yeah, but you
So
can do that. NESDEC will do that for you. I mean, they're-
So next year is estimated to be minus 120 some odd students.
Yeah.
But then if you keep going out, if you look at our enrollment numbers in the lower levels, they're in the 60 to 80 range, whereas in the higher levels, starting from 5th up to 12, they're in much higher numbers.
Yeah.
So they're in the hundreds. So as the hundreds start going off and graduating and moving into the higher levels in the high school and out, all you're getting is small classes coming through.
How
And that's
do you-
projected all the way out.
How do you project that, though, based on, obviously, population in Hanson does tend to run, I believe, on the older side? Those people will eventually move out. Young families hopefully move in. You don't know those numbers.
You can only project so far, but
Right.
the next step you go towards is birth rates in the towns. So the only people that live there, like birth rates, what those kids' ages are.
Right.
And then you kind of just project what those are. I mean, in order to get a scientific estimation, you have to use like a company like NASDAQ
will
that
do it,
would
yeah.
Right.
estimate it out, but
I'm just,
Yeah.
want people to keep that in mind, that this solution eventually will be outdated as well, and then what are we
Sure,
going to do?
that's true.
Um,
That's what happens.
I'm not sure, again, with this, I know, the huge, it used to be the library at Duval when I went there. Why can't that be broken up into other classrooms? If we're short one classroom to move these to Duval, when Olivia went to preschool, it was a lottery-based program. Do we go by that? Why can't this district learn to live within its means as its taxpayers have to live within its means? You know, we have X amount of money, and that's what we have to play with. This is where that's all you have to play with. This is the first I had heard that you have actual costs for this project, so I agree with Laura. The sooner you get those out there, I was under the impression it was still kind of estimates, that there isn't a full total cost yet to that. So the more information you put out there, the better off you'll be. But again, I think Duval, if you're one classroom short, we seem to be putting the cart before the horse, and that you don't even have funding yet. We're already doing major construction.
We haven't done one bit of major construction at all.
We're moving technology classrooms around.
That has not happened.
No?
No, nothing has happened. That's
Okay.
why we're here this evening,
Over
Danielle.
Christmas vacation, though, was there not plans to
Nothing
start that?
Is
Okay.
going to happen until the
misunderstanding
school
then.
committee meets tonight and determines how we're going to move forward.
Okay. my
It's
misunderstanding.
irresponsible to do it any other way.
Okay, I was misunderstood from the Board of Selectmen meeting that I watched a few weeks ago, that stuff was in
Don't
plan
have
to
money
do
in the
during
bank, you
vacation.
can't do it.
Okay. Again, just I think we're trying to do square peg, round hole. It doesn't fit. The whole drop-off, I don't know how many of you have ever done it, but I've done it at McQuon, I've done it at Indian Head, and I've done it at Duval. Drop-off is a horrible process when you're letting your kid come out. I believe this process is, the teachers are gonna get the kids. I don't know where they go. You know, do you hold on to 3 kids as you run out to a car to get another one? It's antiquated. I'm not sure that process has completely been thought through correctly, and I have to agree with my mother. Another external door when there's one right down the hallway. when we've just done all of this to Hanson Middle and Whitman Middle for security reasons, we're now just put an outside door that not, people are gonna have access to. I know it's a card or whatever, but it still just doesn't make sense that we have all this security in these schools, but not at that door for our smallest children. So, just my 2 points.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, moving on to McQuon, K2 to Indian Head. Same type of problem, moving company and crate rentals, library and administrative office move, retrofitting classrooms for extra space or additional space, 3 of them, retrofitting new bathrooms that requires plumbing, electrical, sprinklers, ceilings, tiles, ventilation, fire alarms, and concrete work. 1 classroom is being split into 2 larger bathrooms, food service freezer, additional day for staff to move into Indian Head, 23 of them, technology equipment removal and reinstallation, fencing around Indian Head play area, pod rentals, and final cleanup. And the price tag for that was $332,568. Questions? Anyone? The next one is Indian Head Grade 5 to Hanson Middle. Moving company and crate rentals, an additional day for staff to move to Hanson Middle. That's probably the least, it's $8,875 for that move. I believe that we had talked about no matter what happens, that move is probably going to happen anyway. So no matter what happens with the financial piece of it, that move is probably going to happen. Any questions? Beth?
Kind of more of a statement, and I know the 5th grade teachers who are planning on moving will be very happy to hear that, because, you know, they have it in their heads that they're moving, and they're kind of like all planned for it. So it's nice to hear that that looks like that's a go anyway, because I know Bill has worked really hard on scheduling and everything already for that, and it's the least cost amount for anybody. So it would be great, you know, that I can go back and tell the 5th grade teachers that it looks like it's a go for you guys, you know, relax. Plus, it leaves more room. You know, I talked to Ruth earlier, it leaves more room if you get rid of, you know, move the 5th grade teachers over. Now you have that extra space that you can now work to retrofit and everything else, that you can move classrooms. So, you know, I think that, you know, on behalf of the teachers, they appreciate that part anyway. We'd like to see the whole thing done, because everybody was kind of planning on that, but it's nice to hear at least that part is going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth.
Hi, Jamie Lacey. I live on Lakeside Road. I have a 4th grader that would be moving up to 5th grade next year, and I have some friends and I that are a little concerned with, have we planned what may be offered for after-school care for our young children, that they're going to be getting out of school a lot earlier than what they would have if they stayed at Indian Head. Is there any kind of plan as far as getting them back to Indian Head for maybe an after-school care program, or will they be allowed to
I think there's certainly a way we can work that out with the Old Colony Y. They've been partners of ours for over 20 years and very flexible, so that's absolutely something we'll work on.
Okay, great, thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Last, McQuon and Indian Head SPED programs to do all. Moving company and crate rental, 2 programs into 4 classrooms. Renovate classroom for additional space, and an additional day for staff to move 4 staff. And that's $23,750. Does anyone have any questions about that? That will be going to Duval and Whitman. I know that it has been there in the past.
It has been in the past, and I think there's some advantages to this in that it does help consolidate services for those students as well.
Any questions? Okay, so now I think it's incumbent upon the committee to decide at this particular point whether we want to ask the town of, take a vote and ask the town of Hanson to have a special town meeting to appropriate $555,000 for this move. And we're also going to have to notify the town of Whitman about their costs and see if they're additional, or if they have a way of, their cost is much cheaper. because they only share in the move with the Whitman-Hanson expense. They don't share in any of the Hanson expense, and they share in that on a 59.82 versus 40.18. So their cost is gonna be, for the Whitman-Hanson move, $256,189.60. They may choose to fund it in a different way and not have to have a special town meeting. Fred?
They've already appropriated 26,536.
Right, so the total's
And
282.
Hanson's already appropriated 17,824.
Yep,
I believe that's the balance with that deducted,
that's correct.
so
Bob?
that's their cost. Mike?
If we do go ahead with a special town meeting, are we going after the $555,000, or are you gonna go after what preliminary construction is before May town meeting?
You have to go for the whole amount.
You have to, or that's,
Well, it would make sense to, rather than break it up, because it would give you a definite answer of what you're going
if we're
to
gonna do
do.
it? Okay.
You don't wanna get funded for half, and then you have to put it in the back burner because you don't wanna pay for the second part.
All right, are you confident with that 555 number?
I guess, Mike, that's a good question. The contractors that we've had out here in each trade, I've probably had 3 different contractors come out and give me 3 different estimates. What I put in the book and what I put on that schedule is, like I mentioned last week, I had one contractor come out, he was going to skim coat, he was going to tape the joints. The next contractor came out and plastered. It's going to be all plastered area, and that's the price we carried. So I feel very comfortable with it because I've been chasing these prices. In every discipline that's come out, it's been in the same, area.
Ernie, while you're up there, you already know my question. If they get funding at February special town meeting, how confident are you that that's enough time?
Well,
I know it's gonna be tight, I mean,
Yeah.
is it a realistic timeframe, or are we better off to ask the town to give us further out, whether it's 6 months, whether it's a year?
Well, let me answer the way I look at the project, Mike, Robbie. If, depending on February special town meeting, if it's after school vacation, then we lose a precious week where whatever we're doing down here would have to be priced on off hours if we don't take advantage of that week
Gotcha. Okay.
that no kids are here. And I would say the same thing with the April school vacation. We've kind of talked around the new building here. It still has a lot of noise that's going to happen, ripping up the concrete and putting in those bathrooms. And the numbers I got, the prices I got, was working during the day, working not weekends, not any other time. So if that changes, then of course the price goes up, and then that kills the schedule.
Can we
So-
get pricing for that, just so that we can, so we have it? So we can, when we're sitting with the town of Hanson, town of Whitman, say, look, here's if things are going really well time-wise, but otherwise, if we've got to go to second shift work or weekend work, here's what the price difference is.
I can ask for that price difference. Ours is all rate job, prevailing wage.
Right.
So for the masonry work or for the concrete work, that person would be paid out of, on the rate, it's about $54 an hour. So I would just multiply that by time and a half.
Okay.
And that would be the easy calculation that I would use.
Okay.
But to answer your question as far as the schedule, Robbie, if it's if we're able to get the funding before the February school vacation, I feel comfortable that we can achieve the preschool here prior to or just about the end of school year.
Okay.
That doesn't say that the Indian Head School bathrooms can be done in that same time frame, because that has its own complications.
Right, its own issues.
Right. And that we have to uncover that. First off, we have to do, and I had two contractors out last week, abatement contractors, and the question they have, is it going to be done during the work week, or is it going to be done at nights and weekends, or, so those numbers are going to change. So I've asked for both on those.
Well, and I'm just curious, just because listening to the town administrator, if we're able to have the second set of numbers only so that if we have to expedite that time frame that they're working, say, double shifts, they can say to the town, look, it's gonna cost X amount more Indian Head School, if they have to go to, say, double shifts, or start working weekends in the summer, so you can achieve that September timeframe versus we're gonna need 6 more months, and I'm not sure what the cost would be for the town to keep McQuon open that 6 more months, if you know where I'm going with
I
that.
see what you're saying.
Yeah, just to.
So what is
just
the
so
balance?
just so
The-
it is what
To
it
keep
is.
McQuon open for 6 more months, it's gonna cost this amount of money, or to accelerate the project,
Right.
weekends and nights,
the
it's gonna cost this amount of money, so
Yeah.
does that equal out?
Right, and that's kind of what I'm looking for, because that's been my concern for the last year, as most people know, is.
Yep,
just
and we
that
appreciate
timeline
that.
because of, the
Then we
students and
kind of
things
mean
like
what
that.
Mike wanted, he wanted the numbers to see, if we had to,
Yeah,
they're looking to,
we've got Ally before.
yeah, they're looking to get that deadline in, so.
Keep in mind, Robbie, though, if we have a special town meeting, we can't give them 2 sets of numbers. We
No,
either-
I'm talking for the selectmen, whether we meet with them next week or the following week, to
Yeah.
say, look, here's kind of where we're at, and we're gonna have to pick a number. I mean, right now it's 555, but if we have to add another, I'm just throwing out a number, 100,000 onto it, or whatever it is, to make sure we meet that September deadline, or is the town, if we can't necessarily make that deadline, are they okay going until January?
Mm-hmm.
Which I know the staff wouldn't wanna do, that everybody wanna open up fresh.
Get it done and get
In
it over.
September, which I agree with, absolutely. But I don't wanna, I'd rather be open and honest and say, look, this is
Yeah, I
a
agree.
Plan B.
tight timeline, and here's just kind of the cost differences.
There's
'Cause it may
vari-
be- Yeah, it may be
there's
cheaper to
variables.
say, yeah, accelerate it, work double shifts, whatever, I don't know.
Ally?
I just have kind of a question more so for Ruth, I think. With all the construction noise and whatnot that could potentially be happening in the springtime, what about MCAS testing,
It
AP
can't happen
exams
when
and stuff
students
like
are
that?
there, and none of that work that is scheduled at Indian Head would happen when kids are at school.
Okay.
Can't, that's the concern.
Yeah.
And that was the ideal would be to do the preschool first, and to do it when high school's not in session.
Okay.
And that's why these breaks, February and April, really matter. And then really look at doing the Indian Head projects once school's out.
Okay.
And then get those finished, so they then have people available to do the others. But nothing's gonna happen when kids, we're not gonna, MCAS, we gotta have.
Right, that's why I was just double
No, that would
checking.
not, there would not be a disruptive factor to that. And that's part of the concern, I think, that they're bringing up, that if we have to work off hours, it does become more expensive.
Yeah.
Fred?
Two things. Number one, Ernie, how thin do you see yourself and your staff spread in accomplishing this project? And should we perhaps consider, as a board, having a project manager or someone to oversee this?
Well, you might make lasagna different than me, and I use that as an analogy. Somebody's going to come in
I
here
just
as a
eat it,
project.
don't make it, but-
Somebody's going to come in here as a project manager and see it differently. I think we've gone through this whole thing, Fred, for the past 5 months, 5.5 months since April, when we started to talk about it. When I look at bringing a project manager in here, there's a significant cost to the project manager. And they're going to line up their own contractors. I think what we have is we have a resource of people, and I think I've mentioned a couple of names that we've used. We've got definitely good prices from local contractors.
And, perhaps maybe we get an assistant to you or some.
Yeah.
The way I look at it, I know the amount of hours you put into this district.
Yeah.
You don't work 40 hours, okay? If something happens 2 in the morning, you're here.
Right.
You put in so much time, and with this project being so important to get everything done, how much can one person do if you spread that thin? You still have the normal summer schedule, the cleanups to over the SJ, filters to be changed.
Yeah.
There's so much that you do, you're always active, you're always busy. Is that something we should perhaps consider? And that's what I'm saying, and if I call it a project.
Could I just answer that? I'm very comfortable with my role, both roles. This is what we do, Fred. If a project comes up, that we take on that project, just like Chad and his department. We'll get it done, but as far as the staff, We have a group of people that cut grass during the springtime and the fall and the summer. I was bringing those people inside, those staff members inside, to work on this project. So when springtime comes along, they go back to lining fields, cutting grass, all the stuff that happens outside. So if it goes beyond that time frame, I lose those important people to the outside, because that's just as demanding, just as important. So the schedule is really important from what Robbie had pointed out, that February break going into April. As far as April baseball, baseball's screaming they want to get on the baseball fields towards the end of March. We got to prepare those fields. So I'm saying the winter months, the way I really looked at this project, the winter months were important for us because we could use the staff that we have here to work on that project.
And can you clarify, there was supposed to be some work that we already have money allocated for,
Yeah?
and what that work is and the timeline on that?
Well, as far as I know, we were looking at ripping some carpet up in the computer labs.
Yeah.
We've not done that.
No, I understand.
We
haven't done anything
Right.
yet.
So the way we looked at it, there was some initial funding that we were going to go through, which both towns agreed to. Right now, that's not going anywhere. So when we get the green light, when all this gets clarified, then we have that money to work with on those projects.
So we're not touching anything until?
No, absolutely not.
Dan?
Yeah, just when I was listening to Fred, the only concern I would have during the February school vacation is Mr. Weather.
Yeah.
If we get slocked with, like we had a few years ago with snow after snow after snow.
Yeah.
We just don't want to make you too unavailable.
Yeah,
We have to
no.
take care of the district and not construction, and we prepared for something like that. And I know we're pulling your outside guys in,
Right.
but are we going to be able to put them back outside to do the snow removal?
Yeah, and that we're doing that now. If a storm comes along, we prepare for it. For the last 2 weekends, we've had the storms that never really came or never showed up, but we still prepared for it.
Yeah, no, that would be my concern is, you're all ready to go in, start the construction, get it done, then Mother Nature plays a cruel little joke to us for 4 or 5 days.
I mean, they're not building the walls, they're not saw cutting the floors, they're not, I mean, that's all subcontracted out, so I think,
Yeah.
let's just be clear on that.
All right, I just want to make
Yeah.
sure, our guys aren't going to be tied up, and then we have to take them out of there.
You got 6.
Just counted.
Okay. Any other questions on McQuon and Indian Head? Move, and like I said, I think it's incumbent upon this committee to decide whether we want to move forward to ask Whitman and Hanson, well, Hanson currently, to have a special town meeting. So it entertains some motion.
All right. If I'm gonna make, I'll make the motion, but I think we should also include Whitman. We're talking over $200,000.
We have definitely going to include Whitman, but they said they may not, from what I heard, require a special town meeting, because the cost is much less.
Okay.
So,
And they have a
include
funding
it,
source.
include it, Fred, include it in your motion.
So with notification to Whitman.
In
and
Hanson.
In Hanson, to Whitman to have the option to request Hanson to have a special town meeting in order to fund this project at the recommended amount to be determined within the next week or so.
Second?
Second?
Michelle, can you read that back to me?
Just want to leave the amount open.
To notify
Yeah.
both Hanson and Whitman, Board of Selectmen, to hold a special town meeting in order to fund the closing of the McLaurin School and phases, and
Cost
amount to be
associated.
determined.
Could we add in there, it is the intent of the school committee to ask Whitman and Hanson?
What?
In the middle of that, it is the intent of the school committee to ask the towns of Whitman and Hanson requesting.
Requesting a town
Yeah,
meeting.
yeah, to request special town meeting, yep.
You all right with that?
I'm
Fred?
all right with that.
You all right with that as a second,
Yeah.
Mike? I just want to add in the school committee part, so it's not, they have clarification of who it is.
That makes sense.
Okay, discussion. Anybody from the committee? Brett?
I just feel that, you know, my personal feeling is we should be on as fast of a track as possible, while obviously getting the job done properly. And, you know, try and get it done so that we can be in there for start of school. And perhaps we even want to look at moving the calendar back and starting school a week later, perhaps, something of that nature, you know, for next year. You know, if that would work, to give that little extra bit of a cushion.
I think as we move on with the project, to tailor into what you're talking about, internally, we will look at that. We'll be getting reports from Ernie about how he's coming along with the project. And most importantly, we need to inform the staff and the public. The people that are actually, you know, that we take their children in every day, need to be fully aware how this project's going and the timelines on it and where we're gonna be in case we have to move something.
Do you want to add February to that? That was,
Yeah, 45 days.
yeah.
It is, probably should be added to the motion also.
At the earliest possible moment.
Okay. Makes sense.
And
the
then
second
you
week
can
in
read it back to me before we go to vote.
Okay.
Can you read it back, Michelle, when you're done, please?
I'll clean it up a little better than this, but.
Okay.
Motion made by Fred Small, vote that the intent of the school committee is to request that both Hanson and Whitman Board of Selectmen hold a special town meeting in February 2018 in order to fund the McQuon School project closing, amount to be determined.
Should we make sure it's prior to the February vacation?
Well, 45 days would bring it to the week before February.
We just want to make sure.
And that would consider doing that if they can't hold a meeting until the first week in January, like after January 2nd. I counted.
No, that's what I was getting,
Yeah.
very, very close, I was thinking.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to be a Monday.
Thursday before the
It could
vacation.
be, you know,
As soon, if anyone wants to speak, this is discussion time, so now's the time to ask the questions. But as soon as I talk to Mike in the next few days, I will email the committee if there's a timeline issue on a do not reply email, so we're not deliberating. And that'll give you a timeline, and if we have to convene another school committee meeting in between Christmas and New Year's, I mean, I hate to do that, but it's a pretty important thing, so.
Christine, what percentage of this work, like the playground and some of the numbers that are up a little higher, have to go out to bid?
anything over 50,000.
What
Because
is it?
I talked to the AG's office, actually, just to make sure that they didn't
Yeah.
consider this one lump project, but they
You're
don't.
fine with it?
We can-
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll get quotes on everything, but the stuff that's over the 50,000 needs to be out to bid.
Okay.
So as soon as we get the appropriation, you know, we can write the specs and get them out, so. Or we can even make it prior to that if we, make sure that's contingent on getting funding.
555.
Does the 555 include an Indian ground, Indian Head playground, sorry?
No, it does not.
Or surface or any, or
No,
fence?
that's all other additional considerations.
That's like 90, 60, 45 grand.
So even with this getting done next year, there is no playground at Indian Head.
Unless we bring it to them in the spring, or we include it in this
Do it
555.
as a separate warrant article.
Yep.
No, there are things you could do, but.
Yep.
Anyone else? Anyone? Okay, seeing no further discussion, we're going to move to the vote on Fred's motion and Mike's second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Okay. I believe that we have no more business to talk about on the McQuon closing update. We will keep everyone as in the loop as we possibly can, so keep in mind if there are any meetings that you see or anyone watching sees anything, check the website, check with the school committee. Don't hesitate to check with us or call us, because we want to keep everybody in the loop on the timeline so there's no confusion. And the rumor mill doesn't get started that this isn't going or that isn't going. We want you to all be in the timeline. So thank you all for coming. I'd entertain a motion to
So
adjourn.
moved?
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you, everyone.
What's that?
Go to subcommittee.